Hey everyone, it's Alexis. I hope you are all doing well today. I'm going to be going through our Chapter 4 seasonal trees and going through all the ways you can use this. I know we hear seasonal and we're like, oh, maybe that's only good for Thanksgiving or Christmas, but this is a really great evergreen die, and I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways that you can use it so that it works for you year round. It's also a great die set for beginners and advanced makers, and I'm going to show you why. So stay tuned and let's get into what we can make with these seasonal trees from Chapter 4.
Okay, so first things first, we want to talk about the actual die set itself. So like I said, this is our Seasonal Trees die set. It's a 7-pack thinlit die set, and it's by Jennifer Ogborn. It's 666025 in case you're interested in knowing which one I'm working with. And what I love about this die set is that you're going to get 3 basic shapes right here, and they're all very different. So you get something that resembles more of a birch tree, something that's like an oak tree, another one that's like a tall pine almost. And with each of those, you're also going to get these various decorative elements. So on one right here, you've got small flowers with their flower centers. Here you've got a bundle of leaves along with individual leaves. You've got a bunch of hearts right here. And then we've got this one, which looks like kind of a mesh of flowers. So think like a jacaranda tree. I don't think I'm even pronouncing that correctly, but think of something with very fluffy, decadent, billowy flowers on it, if you will. That's what this one reminds me of. It also kind of reminds me of cherry blossom trees a little bit. So you're going to get these basic shapes. And what I like about this is that you can essentially use any of these on any of these trees. You can use the trees by themselves if you want to. And you could even use these with other tree die sets that you might have, or just as foliage elements, as I will show you, which I did. But I think the easiest thing to do is just to get right into the making and show you a couple of the different ideas I had with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is walk you through the seasons. And we're going to start with the season that we're currently in, which is fall. Now, some of these makes I've gone a little overboard, and they're a little bit more advanced in the sense that they are going to be more time consuming. But I also, when we get down to what I'm going to make today, I wanted to show you how simple and easy they are to put together, as well as some additional ideas that you can do to make the making even faster for if you're doing bulk card making for the holidays or for birthdays or whatever you might be doing. So the first thing I did on this card, and I have not put a sentiment on it because I don't know what I want to say yet, but what I did, and I want to show you this, I kept it so I could show you on camera. I inked a panel of cardstock in fall tones, we'll say. And I'm thinking like those transitions of colors. So right now, all across the country here in the United States, we have leaves changing, and they're going from greens to browns to gold and red, and it's really beautiful. So I did kind of a mix of those colors on here, and then you can see I just die cut everything out of that one panel. I did it all at once. I inked the panel, and then I cut everything and I put it into piles. And then I cut the trees out of our Cork texture roll. If you aren't familiar with our texture roll, we have it in 2 sizes for the Cork. It comes in a 12 by, I think it's 12 by 72, or no, it's 12 by 48 inches in this one. Great for journal covers, and you can sew these, you can, like, there's so many cool ideas with I haven't done so much with the Cork, but with the texture rolls in general, they are washable. I was trying to think of the right word. I was like, what can you do with these? They're sewable. You can distress them to make them look like leather. The Cork's a little different. It's not quite as malleable, we'll say, as some of the other texturals we have in the solid colors, but we do have it in 6 inches and in 12 inches. And I wanted these trees to have a really natural look to them without me having to emboss the tree trunks or ink the tree trunks. I just wanted them to like feel organic. So what I ended up doing was cutting the trees out of this Cork roll. And you can see it's a very thin kind of material, so thinlits will cut from it, which is a great thing. And what I did is I cut them, and I actually went back in with pen and added what looked like knot holes and the lines that you might see on trees to make it look even more realistic. So you can see they cut through no problem. I cut out 2 different types of tree, but then I knew I wanted to just do really fall organic things. So I cut all of the colors out, and then I went back in and I added some inking to the edges on those leaf bundles. And then I just added them all to the trees. I knew I wanted this side to have more of the gold and orange and yellow hues, just to show that the seasons were changing and that this one was just beginning to change. So I will probably stamp a sentiment here and emboss it in gold embossing powder. Whatever you kind of want to do. I think you could even just send this as is. You could add some string here and put a sentiment across the top with some foam tape. But realistically, I wanted to start with fall. It's my favorite season. I created these rolling hills just by taking a pencil across a piece of paper and then hand cutting them out. I inked them so that I'd have a shadow along the top to make it look more realistic. I want it to look like the sun was just beginning to set. So I started with yellows right here, but the sky is still blue up here. So that's another fun thing you can really do and play with these is the backgrounds. I'll show you another one I did where I played with it so it looked like a full-on sunset. And then there's another one where I just inked the whole background. So it's really up to you how you want to like individualize these. I could have used the other elements. I didn't have to use the leaves, but obviously because I wanted leaves, I had leaves falling from the tree. So I just took the individual leaves, which I kept in a pile right here, and I can use this for another project. So I'll just put those in a little baggie, put them off to the side, and next time I do one of these projects, I just won't cut out more of those individual leaves. I already have them ready to go. So I have leaves piled here along the ends of the bottoms of the tree like you would normally see. I have leaves falling from the tree like you would normally see. You can really have fun building scenes with these. And that's something I love to do with cards is really like build a scene. It brings you in, makes you feel like you're somewhere warm and special. So that's what I chose to do with the fall leaves. Now we'll move on to winter. Now with winter, it's a little, you can play a lot of different things with winter, which I kind of like. And what I chose to do is I wanted to see if I could fit these trees into our shaker panes. So I chose to do a very wintry look. So I went with silver and black and aquas, and I made a shaker card, as you can see right here. So I fit the tree inside, I inked the background, spritzed some water on it, I put some of our festive sequins in there so you can see the snowflakes. I did some of our neutral sequins. I could not think of the word there for a second, pardon me. And then I went on top with one of our festive sentiments. They're a clear stamp set, embossed that with the black embossing powder from our neutral pack, and cut an aperture into the front so that I could have like a peekaboo shaker pane in the back. So with winter, you can have a lot of fun, but one thing I think that's really cool with winter is you can also just take the bare trees and you can make it look like winter. This is gonna be kind of hard to see. What I did with this one is I took the tree and I added small flowers on it, but then I added some of our Crystal Glaze to the branches and on top of the flowers to make them look, in person you can kind of see the glaze better, but to make them look like they've been iced over. So you can take the Crystal Glaze, which is this beautiful, sparkly, transparent glaze that dries clear. So pretty when it dries. And you can add that on to make it look like snow is glistening. You could also take our dimensional paste and add the dimensional paste onto the branches and make it look like snow is weighing down the branches. So there's a lot you can do with the winter stuff to kind of up the ante with your effects, and to also do watercolor backgrounds in light blues, or you could cover this in leaves and make it look like a pine tree and add some ornaments to it and make it look like a Christmas tree. Not everyone celebrates Christmas, so that's why I did winter, because most people have something to do in the winter. But again, creating a scene like this makes me feel like brr, cold. I can't wait to bundle up inside. And I love shaker cards, so it's a fun thing to know that they fit inside of our shaker panes. So I'm using the circle shaker pane here. Just for your knowledge, I'm using the largest one on this. So I think it's about 3 inches, a little over 3 inches. I don't have it right in front of me, but I know it's definitely at least 3 inches. Then we're gonna move to summer. We're skipping a season because I'm gonna make spring on camera for you. We're gonna move into a sweet and lovely summer sunset. And this time we're going to be ink blending our background. So I ink blended from here to here in yellows, oranges, pinks, and like darker pinks. And obviously if you are blending inks all the time, you know that when you're gonna blend yellow and pink together, you're gonna get orange. So I was able to kind of create this orange without actually having to use orange, we'll say. And then I took those bunched flowers this time and cut them out of really pretty ruby, our red ruby cardstock, which is in our muted pack. And I've added those just bare bones to the trees because during the summer you get these really vibrantly colored trees. But just because it's summer, I was like, I love summer and sunsets. They're so beautiful, and it's so nice to just sit outside and watch the sunset at like 8 o'clock or 12 o'clock, or never set in some places, I guess, during the summer. But again, I hand drew that hillside because I wanted it to look like a shadow almost. So I could have just I could have done all of this in brown, and it really would have given that effect of a shadow and that the sun is setting and things are getting dark. So you can really have a play around with color on this and creating that kind of focal point of a foreground and a background, which is really fun. And again, create those scenes. So before I go into other styles of making, let's make a spring card. I want to show you how quick and fast you can do these. And I'm going to be doing I kind of want to do like a cherry blossom tree. So that's what I'm going to aim for. Okay, let me bring my Foldaway in real quick. And I've got my paper over here. I'm going to be using my circle framelits that work with the shaker panes. I kind of just kept them out and wanted to play with them on a couple of different makes. So on this one, I want to have both the frame and the circle because I'm going to use that as my centering focal point for the tree. You can use different colors. You can use circle framelits. We have some circle framelits in our essential shape if you want to check online. Under our die cutting section, we have a whole section now for our essential shapes. And so if you want nested shapes like squares and hearts and stars, things like that, you can find them in that area. And I'm not kidding when I say I have like 2 sets of every kind of nested shape you can imagine. I use them all the time for my basic cards. I've already pre-cut this one. I did what looks like the kind of, not the birch style. I don't know what one this reminds me of, but I wanted a dark base tree so it would really pop against that blue background. And then I'm going to cut out 2 sets of flowers. So for the first one, pulling my flower dies in real quick. They're underneath all the makes I have piled over here. So for the background, I want like a really bright color tone. So I am going to be using the blush from our muted collection for that. And then for the smaller flowers that are more like cherry blossoms, I'm going to be doing a lighter pink on this one. So I've got those. Let me just cut them. Now I will say, if you are someone who doesn't want to deal with the mess of adhesive, when I'm dealing with small elements like this, there are 2 things I like to have on hand. And the first one is adhesive sheets. I know I'm working with adhesive, like liquid adhesive today, but if you're not someone that wants to deal with that mess, just put a little bit of an adhesive sheet on the back of these before you cut them. And then all you have to do is peel away the backing of the adhesive sheet and you have mess-free making. So I've cut all of my flowers now, and I'm going to just get these off of my cutting plate real quick. Oh. And I'm going to pull out my tweezers, and we're going to get to making our cherry blossom tree. So I like to, when I'm working with really small things, I like to put my express glue in a tiny very fine tip nozzle bottle. So that's what I'm using as our express glue because I want it to dry quickly. Now, if you want to do this in a more advanced style, you could absolutely ink all of your flowers and your background. For the sake of time, I'm not going to be doing that today, otherwise we would be here a very long time, but I am going to show you how I tend to lay things out on the trees so that you can get a sense of what to do. Now, typically I would pull out my multimedia mat because I would be doing some inking just to create that depth perception, but because I'm not going to do that, I am going to just put a puddle of glue on the back of my hand. I'm going to show you a trick that my good friend Pete Hughes and even Jess Slack do. So they will normally put a puddle on the multimedia mat, but I'm not pulling that out because I'm not doing any inking. But when you're working with these smaller sized dies and you don't want glue to come seeping out the back ends, I will just take my tweezers and a little bit of glue on the back of my hand and then just lay them down. And then I don't have glue seeping out the edges, which we all know happens when we're trying to put leaves down or anything small and intricate, which is why I also recommend our adhesive sheets because they're beautiful for that. So I just following the branches and I'm laying these on there, and no rhyme or reason really, but I am following the branch shapes, just pushing out the little holes on these trees so you can, or not these trees, these flowers, so that you can see them, because that's what adds the effect of it looking like a bunch of flowers. And you can see I'm not laying them down the same way each time. I would do that on top of that, but I don't want my glue to get all over my background. So I'll hold up the tree once I'm done. I'm going in between branches. And once I have this done, I will glue that to the background. You could also just leave this as is, so you don't have to add these additional flowers, but I want to show you how easy it is to like color blend the flowers. So now I'm going to adhere this to, I think I'm going to adhere it to my card first so I have a sense of where it is. So I'm just using a smooth white card base here. And if I wanted to, I could make this dimensional, and I think I might just because that seems kind of fun to me. So I'm going to grab some foam tape and a pair of my scissors, and I'm going to add a bit of foam tape to the back of this just to give it a little dimension, because why not? This is how I make. I like to make as I go. I always talk about, like, I started off in scrapbook pages, and I always call it building a page because that's what I used to do. I would spend hours working on a scrapbook page because for me, it was all about the process of like trial and error and figuring out, oh, I don't like that color, or I don't like that. And like, I would never adhere anything down until I was like, yep, like it. And then I would just go to town. But half of it was just, well, let me just try that. Let me see if it works. Okay. If I can get this last piece off, the other two came off easy enough. There we go. Okay, so I want to off-center it because I'm going to have some of them floating off. And by them, I mean the flowers. And I want to leave enough room to stamp a sentiment over here. Now, if you want, you could add in a frame to give it that extra dimension. I'm not going to because I want to keep it a little bit more simple. But now that I know where my tree is going to be, now I can kind of add this on. So I'm just going to go in with my adhesive, add a little bit up the branches. I don't worry so much about getting every single little branch. I just get the strategic ones and right down the center where I want it to hold pretty well. Okay, so we'll put that on there. And now we've got all these small little flowers. So what I'm going to do with these is start adding them on top, and these will create a contrasting color to the flowers that are already on there, and I can move them around wherever I want them to be. I'm also going to have some flying away from the tree as well, like they're flying in the wind. So we'll have some coming off the tree as well. You can see why my tweezers are coming in handy. They're helping me get the glue on and helping me get these smaller flowers on there too. I'm using our fine tip tweezers in case you're curious. We also have the reverse action tweezers too. Those are fantastic for holding things as you're making. Have some fly down this way. You can see how quickly this comes together, and you can absolutely create it with any color scheme that you want. So like I said, I could turn this into a fall tree if I wanted to, just by changing out the colors. I could turn it into a summer tree by changing out the colors. I could leave it bare and just have snow coming down from it for winter. So the world is your oyster. I think, yeah, I want them to like feel natural, as if they would blow away that way. So here's some other ideas while I'm putting all these flowers on this tree. I was starting to think, well, what else could I do with these? How else could I make with them? We've looked at how you could do scenes and keep them simple or keep them more advanced, especially the backgrounds. You can absolutely do watercolor washes. So you could cut all of the elements out of white paper or white watercolor paper and then watercolor them in a really soft hue. If you don't want to use cardstock and like really bold colors, you could do really soft tonal colors. You could also do like really cool mixed media backgrounds and then just put just a tree in front of it. So you really have a lot of different ways that we play with positive and negatives. And I'm actually going to show you what I did with one of the negatives in a moment. I have another little make for you there. And that really allows you to kind of aim this for, if you're a beginner and you want something simple, you can see I'm putting together something quickly and it's not taking me a lot of time and it's not complicated. Now, if you're someone who's been making for a long time and you want to challenge yourself a bit, there's quite a number of things mixed media wise that you can do with this to really amplify the overall look and feel. I'm just gonna get this glue off my hand and I'll pull up this so you can see it. So you can see I've got my tree, those lighter color flowers on there. I could keep adding more if I wanted to. I've got some blowing off the tree. I'm just gonna take quickly a stamp sentiment. Let me pull in my Stencil Stamp Tool because I want to potentially stamp this more than once. So I'm gonna put that there. And I'm gonna pull in a sentiment from one of my favorite sets from this year called Good Vibes number 4. Some really great stamps in this one. And I'm trying to think which one I want to use. Sending Happiness, maybe. Let's see. Let's do Choose Happy. I feel like there's something so lovely about these flowers in the spring. So we're going to do Choose Happy. And I'm just going to line this up on my card where I want it, probably right about there. And I'm going to use the stamp plate on my Stencil Stamp Tool to get that on there. Add a little bit of ink. I'm just going to lightly ink it the first round, and then I always like, especially with anything that has really thick letters, I always go back over it 2 or 3 times just to really get a very strong stamped element. But I'm not done with it yet, because I see that and I'm like, you know what it needs? It needs a little bling. So I have got some rhinestones over here that I am going to add to the center of some of these flowers, especially those smaller ones. There we go. I'm extra with my ink, so you don't have to be as extra as me. But there is our stamp sentiment on our card. And now we're just gonna add some final touches to it. I'm gonna grab my tweezers again and get some of these smaller gemstones. That one flew away because I'm not paying attention. And I'm just gonna add it here and there on the tree just to give it a little bit of bling. These already have adhesive on them, so I'm not having to glue them down, which is nice. I'll just add a few here and there. It just takes the little details sometimes that just bring something to life. Okay, I think that's good enough. So there you go. I've added in some gemstones, which just adds a nice little bling to it. And I've got my quick and simple spring card right there. Now I want to show you some other ideas because I'm not someone who likes to just give you one. I like to give you a couple. I'm going to pull this one off to the side real quick. I'm going to pull these ones in over here too, so we have them all kind of within view. This next one, we talked about the negative, and what I did is I cut one of the trees into just a panel of cardstock. And it got me thinking, okay, you can do this with any of the trees, but I know in Canada they already had Thanksgiving, and for the US our Thanksgiving is not until next month. But I also know people don't celebrate Thanksgiving all over the world. So I wanted to just do something like in fall tonal colors, because I think we can all say that, you know, we show thanks for people all year round. So you can change out the colors for this and do the same concept. But I wanted to, I'm trying this out on camera, and I really hope it works because I have this vision in my head and I want to see if it looks pretty. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece that I have that I have die cut into, and we're going to emboss it, the panel. And I'm going to be using another one of our chapter 4 dies here called Drifting Leaves, and it has some really pretty florals and what else is on there? Leaves. So I was going to say if there's florals or something else on there. So anytime with 3D embossing, just because we're asking that paper to give a lot, I always lightly mist both sides of my cardstock. Now I'm going to face my cardstock the way I want it to emboss, on the side I want it to emboss. And I've got this on my lower platform, and I'm just using one cutting pad on top. That's all you need. I like to run these through at least 2 times, especially with multi-level and 3D embossing folders. Okay, that's not bad. I actually like how that turned out. Sometimes I was worried it was going to be a little too busy, so we were doing this together, friends. I was not entirely convinced that this shape would work for that because I chose the one that has a little bit more bulk to the leaves, but I'm not unhappy with that. So then what you can do is I would just glue that to the card front. I could add some gold luster wax on top of that. And then I have another stamp sentiment saying, so very thankful. And I've used our gold embossing powder with that. And that also comes from that same Good Vibes number 4 stamp set. And all I would do is adhere that to my panel. And then I have a nice card that I can send out to somebody around the holidays. I could also tie some string around the bottom before I adhere it. So that's really up to you. Since it's still wet, I'm not going to adhere that just yet. That would be kind of a pain, and it would come right off. A couple other things I think you could really easily do with these is just, it's like you could actually take something like this, and let's say you did a card this direction. You could take some larger kind of fall leaves and have them kind of look like they're coming towards the foreground and make it look like it's going from small to large. So another fun way to do that. It's easy to mix the scale of things with these. But as you can see, These really are great for seasonal card making. You could also make tags with them. You could do place cards and name cards. You could do the whole lower half of a scrapbook page or make a journal. Whatever kind of making you might have in mind, this really and truly can work for you. Like I said, you can do effects backgrounds. I was starting to play around with this one, which I need to keep playing around with it. But I was thinking, okay, I've got 2 paint colors. So I took the end of a paintbrush. You could also use a like cotton swab. And I decided to do dotted kind of panels. So, or not panels, dots of paint. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue it. And then when I'm done, over the dots of paint, I will then add in my tree. So then I have a really cool mixed media background with my tree on top. So there really is a lot of different ways you can create mixed media backgrounds. You can do ink blends, watercolor washes like we talked about, painted dots. You could do ink blends that you add water to. All of them to create a fun background and then just place the actual tree without anything on it in front of it. You could also add a swing to the trees if you wanted to make it look like there's a little swing set on it. Just really great for simplistic kind of makes like these to more advanced makes like these. It's so nice how you can add in different effects with the Crystal Glaze and the prism paste. If you want to give it a frosted look, you can also add the dimensional paste if you want things to look like snow. Just have fun with them, play around with them. But I love trees, I love forests, so I can't wait to continue making with these.
Well, thank you for joining me on that journey through the seasons. I hope you enjoyed and that you've got some great ideas for the upcoming holidays, as well as those everyday makes, whether you're sending it to a friend or a family just for a note of encouragement or to say you're thankful for them. I know I've got a lot of ideas for the upcoming holidays, especially for bulk card making. I wanted something simple that I could put together quickly, but that still had a little bit of personality to it, if you will. So if you happen to have enjoyed this, please, and you're going to make with it, please share that on our social channels on Instagram and on our Facebook page, and use the hashtag #MySizzixStory so that we can see what you're making with and share it with everyone else. I hope you are all doing well, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.